You're watching the Eternal Tournament Series.
Welcome back to the top 4 of the second annual Eye of Winter Classic. I am SirRhino, and here to help break down this upcoming penultimate match is LocoPojo. How you doing, Loco?
Well, doing well. We get to see this Monofire mid-range deck again, and I'm really delighted to see it. So we have, of course, the 4 Soulfire Drake, 4 Obliterate, just lots and lots of beaters in the mid, as well as a couple of nice early game cards in Goblin Gravy's Fire deck against a pretty stock-ish Praxis mid-range list with a single Diogo Malaga, a pile of Praxis Displacers, and your standard Heart of the Vault Carnosaur Titan Shatterglass top end.
Right, so we saw Goblin Gravy on Monofire midrange a few rounds ago go up against a Praxis midrange and make quick work of it, but this is not the same kind of Praxis list that we saw Goblin take apart before. Tomathur here on his version of Praxis midrange actually has things to do on turn 1 and 2 other than just Torch and Purify. We see the 4 initiative stands there to help accelerate the game plan, 4 Temple Scribes to come down and maybe eat up those Pyro Knights and Oni Ronin. So Tomathor has a bit more to do in the early game and can also accelerate into the mid game. None of those clunky Xenon Obelisks that I was saying is so bad against aggro. Instead, we see the Praxis Displacers in the main deck, and even one of Diogo as a 3/5 blocker can do a lot of work. So Tomathor a bit faster than the Praxis deck that we saw Goblin Gravy run over earlier. So this isn't going to be the same match, same script, I expect.
Yeah, it could be quite a bit different, and it's pretty interesting to see with those Praxis Displacers and the Diogo, whether or not Tomathor can slow down the red deck enough to really start getting through. This Praxis deck does not gain life, and that is one thing that is going to be of an issue, because we are seeing Flash Fire and Obliterate at the top there. So depending on how much he can defend against flyers, like I'm not sure that Praxis has a great matchup here, just because there's not enough answers to flyers. You have Purify and Torch, but that just basically makes more flyers against Soulfire Drake, and with all of that stuff, like you're just in a little bit more trouble.
Yeah, Praxis is not a fan of playing off the back foot, and this Monofire deck is very good at putting you on the back foot. So we'll have to see if Tomathor gets his wish and has Goblin Gravy, stumble out the blocks while Tomathor has turn 1 initiate that lives. That's the kind of script he's looking for to get these wins, at least in the pre-board games. Post-board, he's got a couple of Devoted Thurges, an extra Purify, some slows, another Displacer. Those sort of things can come in and really help turn this matchup into a slog. But I think I can agree with you where Goblin Gravy is still got to be pretty happy about this matchup.
Yeah, we are seeing a pretty solid opening hand for Goblin Gravy with Oni Ronin, Pyro Knight, Bladekin Apprentice. It seems pretty keepable because he's going to get not only his early game, but also enough power to get into his late. There are some risks to this hand, specifically that if he just continues to draw power, it doesn't look that great. But the kind of start you want in a red deck.
Yeah. With a typical aggro deck, the 4 power hands may not be what you want to keep, but Goblin Gravy calls his deck mid-range for a reason. It's got 10 5-drops, 8 4-drops, 4 monuments. It wants to curve out, and that's why we see him keep it here and gets rewarded with a Groundbreaker on the draw. Meanwhile, Tomathor shipped his hand. It was a little bit slower, finds a hand with Torch, but his opening play is depleted power, which lets this Oni Ronin get in for a Warcry, and now he's got a tough decision to make on his follow-up turn.
Loving this Groundbreaker. It makes things look very, very bad for Tomathor early. Tomathor does have access to a Torch and a Friendly Wisp, and he actually chooses to use the Torch on the Bladekin with the expectation that he'll be able to easily deal with the Bladekin Apprentice later.
That might be the wrong assumption to make. That is a unit with quick draw that he won't be able to block for quite some time. His follow-up play here is a Dawnwalker, and the one after that I guess he's banking on is Diogo. But if Dawnwalker goes down here in some fashion, his only power left in hand, well, it was a banner, but he found a Diplomatic Seal for the turn here.
Choosing not to attack with the Pyro Knight for the Spark, and Tomathor actually lets it pass, which does get Goblin Gravy, the activated Groundbreaker. I feel like if Tomathor had blocked there and just tried to basically reactivate the Dawnwalker, it might have been helpful for him, but now he's facing down a lot of very scary threats, and with Goblin Gravy moving up on Flashfire, this is not looking that good for him.
Yep. Goblin Gravy has the option of attacking in with Groundbreaker here and getting the double block out. He might not be super into that, but it looks like he's fine with that. Tomathor just lets it come through and take the 6 damage, valuing having both of those bodies on the board instead.
Goblin Gravy was threatening a torch there, so there was a reason to hold, but I think that if you are looking at your opponent's hand, you would know that the torch is not there due to the way in which the pauses have come out so far.
All right, Praxis Displacer puts Groundbreaker back into Goblin Gravy's hand. Groundbreaker, though, still has double damage if it ever shows up again, but Goblin Gravy sees the Cinder Yeti on top of his deck, makes that 3/5 blocker exhausted, and in comes the team, taking Tomathor down to 6, and this Bladekin Apprentice is up to being a 4-1. Tomathor, though, if he finds undepleted power, could land a Heart of the Vault, but that is not the draw, it seems, as an Amber Acolyte comes out instead here.
This game is pretty much over. Goblin Gravy saw his opportunity to get the necessary damage to make a Flashfire worth it, and now he's got that.
Yep,
it's possible that Tomathor can
torch.
make a block happen here. Well, yeah, we have a torch there, so, but it's not on the overwhelm units, so Flashfire should still get the job done.
Oh, Tomathor plays around Flashfire here, going with the double block on Pyro Knight. So that means Goblin Gravy won't have lethal, but instead just gets to use Pummel. Cinder Yeti will survive, and the double damage Groundbreaker comes down. And this Heart of Vault's going to have to do a lot of work here, because if Goblin Gravy draws a Fire Influence, that's over. The game's over. 6 damage to the face. Tomathor can't draw any life gain. And even if he did, a Groundbreaker's in play. But we'll see what happens here. Yeah, it's a
there it is. Yeah, no, Tomathor lined it up perfectly, played around the Flashfire, but there was just one red influence away for him. Like, taking the damage early was too much, and that was enough to cause serious problems as the game progressed.
Yeah, that game would have been very interesting if early on Tomathor had made the decision to torch the Bladekin Apprentice instead of the Oni run. And I think he overreacted a little too much to the potential for those war cries to be a problem, and not the Bladekin Apprentice just spiraling out of control, as his hand just did not line up well to block it.
Yeah, it's possible to deal small amounts of damage to the Bladekin Apprentice through incidental means, but you basically just need a big unit to hold it at bay, and that's not usually going to work out in your favor.
Yeah, I think that Apprentice ended up doing, on the order of 12 damage or something that game. It added up to quite a bit as we see these players get ready for game 2.
It didn't deal. It definitely killed some things that would have otherwise been able to block.
Yeah. So if you're Tomathor, you're definitely keeping this hand. It's got the Initiate. It's got really good influence. It's everything you want out of a hand in this matchup. Initiate, Scribe, perfect influence. You know you've got the Heart of the Vault to turn the game around on the top end. If you're Goblin Gravy, I think you're on the opposite realm of wanting to keep the hand.
Yep, he's probably pretty happy to throw this. 1 power is not really playable in this setup. Even if you were like super hyper aggro, if you had like 4 Pyro Knights and an Oni Ronin and a single Fire Sigil, I'm still not sure you'd play it in this deck.
Yeah, I mean, there is the merit that Goblin Gravy's on the draw, so he might be likely to keep, power light hands. But yeah, 1 Sigil, I don't think that's ever keepable in this style of mono fire. I also want to give Goblin Gravy a shout out here for the matching appropriate premium Caleb avatar. Haven't given him his dues there, and the upgraded fire totem. So that matters, man. That whole theme, bringing it together, is paying dividends here today, I think.
Indeed. Gravy was saying that he keeps forgetting to switch to his fire totem, so that might not actually be his fire totem, that might be Tomathor's. But it's on the correct side, so...
I think he managed to finally switch to it, but who knows? Maybe I'm being deceived here. I believe your totem is on the right side, but yeah, it is. So I believe that's his fire totem. If it was incorrect earlier, I'm glad that Goblin Gravy has rectified the situation.
with fire. We got an Oni Ronin and a Bladekin Apprentice coming up. After that, he follows it up with Sensari Brigand and or Cinder Yeti. So he's looking pretty okay, but the main risk here is that the little dudes are just standing in the way of Oni Ronin, which is not a threat really to Tomathor at this point.
Yeah, Goblin Gravy not even swinging in with Oni Ronin here, hoping that somehow he can sneak it through later with the assistance of the Cinder Yetis and obliterates. But honestly, I think I would have just tried to offer the trade, cut down on Tomathor's abilities to set up good double or triple or quadruple blocks on this Bladekin Apprentice, because Oni Ronin's not going to get much better than this board state right now, as bad as that might feel.
Here's the question. The Bladekin Apprentice is coming in. Do you triple block? Goblin Gravy has indicated that he does not have a torch. He played the Sensari Brigand, but didn't block with it. He's hiding information here, essentially.
Yeah, that's interesting that he chose to play the Brigand pre-combat and let Tomathor know, I'm not going to blow you out with, a torch or something like that. But even with that knowledge, Tomathor really wants to hold on to the initiative stance here, has the Heart of the Vault in hand, and now that it's his turn, we see another Heart of the Vault on top of the deck. I think we're going to see Tomathor play. He's got an interesting choice here. He can play the Fire Sigil and play a 5/5 Monument. If he does that, though, 2 Heart of the Vault are dead in hand for now, but he'll get to be able to play Monument, Obliterate for the next few turns. If he chooses to play Monument here, he does nothing this turn. And that's the decision he's got to make here. Does he want to unlock these Heart of the Vaults next turn, or does he want to have these lock into playing Monument, Obliterate over these next few turns and have Heart of the Vault clean up the mess later?
Gravy's early game is not looking good here. The Sensari Brigands just don't really have the kind of value that he wants against Temple Scribes and Initiates. And Tomathor is getting slowly towards the late game that he wants. There hasn't been enough value really pushed. With Cinder Yeti, he gets to exhaust a threat and potentially force some type of block. And we do see here that basically Oni Ronin for the Initiate, but without the... he knows the Heart of the Vault is coming, so he wants to upgrade.
I like this. I like this decision from Tomathor. We were talking about the debate before. He opts to go for the guaranteed chain of Heart of the Vaults because it not only puts a body on the board, but removes these pesky Blade Apprentices from play. Here comes the Obliterate from Goblin Gravy, though, to push a little more damage through. Tomathor found a reduced cost Obliterate off Heart of the Vault. Not exactly what he's looking for, but he's sitting at 16 right now. Has already cast 1 heart and gets to cast another one on this turn. That's a pretty good spot to be in, all things considered.
Yeah, I will say I've been very impressed by Goblin Gravy's play so far. He's taken some lines that seemed like they just made some really interesting choices that are designed to either get information that is extremely important or to conceal information that would otherwise be pretty difficult for him. Offering that Oni Ronin for the Initiate is not a play that you will see out of a novice player of Mono Red, and it really demonstrates some of the impressive kind of talent that you can demonstrate with this deck.
All right, so Tomathor was probably all set to play Heart of the Vault this turn, but did find a Xenon Initiation here so to pair with his Obliterate, so he could actually have the option while Goblin Gravy is tapped out to get a killer Dawnwalker going and play a cheap Obliterate, and that looks to be what he decides to do here. Now Goblin Gravy has no board. Tomathor has a killer Dawnwalker set up, still has a Heart of the Vault in hand, still has Wisely leaving back a 1/1 Temple Scribe just to block maybe the Sensari Brigand that's been hanging out in Goblin Gravy's hand.
Yeah, we see the Sensari Brigand Scribe or getting blocked by the Temple Scribe. The Heart of the Vault won't stop it, but it will make enough of a difference that the killer Dawnwalker can get it later. And with a second Obliterate on Tomathor, Tomathor's got all the gas, whereas Goblin Gravy is just slowly trying to push out. He finds a Pyro Knight. That's actually a big unit for him.
Yeah, it's a 6/5. That goes toe-to-toe with Heart of the Vault and dodges, obviously, its burn, but doesn't dodge this Flame Blast. Flame Blast may have gotten nerfed a little bit, but with the assistance of this Initiative stance, it does just enough to get the job done.
Tomathor has been sitting on this Heart of the Vault into Dawnwalker combo, but he has refused to play it, and I think that's been very, very clever on his part. He's specifically trying to make sure that no threat actually gets to push through before building his own board.
And with that top decked fire sigil after the Oni Ronin, that is going to be the game. And we'll have the players tied up 1-1 in this best of 5 as we move into sideboards.
Yeah, so optional sideboards. Tomathor still wants to stay defensive. Devoted Theurge and Purifier are going to help him out probably quite a bit there. I don't think he needs to make any major changes. He's already got most of the low end in there, and if he wants to throw out some Purifies, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, yep. Extra for Tomathor, it's all about just lowering the curve just a little bit more, trying to stabilize. We saw that game there, though. It was just about, really, the key is turn 1 initiate that lives. And Tomathor can't change the number of initiates in his main deck, but he can help accentuate them at least. On Goblin Gravy's side, though, what do you think could come in here? Maybe the extra flash fires for even more just big reach that you can't kill? Or is there a shot for anything else to come in here?
Scar Maul is a potential way to clear out those 1/1s. There are actually some situations where he's sitting on Temple Scribes and Initiates, at least in the previous games where that has been okay. It also kills Heart of the Vaults and other options, but it dies so easily to Torch that it might not be the right choice for this.
Yeah, I think it's more cute than good. When you're talking about bringing in sideboard cards, it's fine to bring in cards that are upgrades over other cards. I just don't see Stone Scar Maul being that in this matchup.
Yeah, Flamestoker also might have that potential bit of cuteness to it. It is a decent amount of damage push and a good way to sort of keep units playing on board, but I do think that his plan right now is Flyers and Burn, and the Flyers and Burn are always going to be the correct answer to the Praxis setup. So Gravy doesn't need to push a lot here. He can throw in Piercing Shots, he can throw in... he can take those Piercing Shots over Pummels. He might take out those Sensari Brigands since they're having such a hard time getting through.
Yeah, I think I like the Pummel slightly more than the Piercing Shots, but it does give you a proactive way to deal with initiative if that's like your concern. But we'll ultimately just have to see what Goblin Gravy goes with as these players are now sitting at mulligans waiting for us to jump on in and see what's going on. We do see a Piercing Shot in Goblin Gravy's hand. So yeah, the Pummels may have come out for that, or maybe something else did. We'll just have to see.
He's playing the Oni Ronins. He's looking for answers to Initiate. I really do like that particular line because if you can get rid of the Initiate, you delay the chance that your opponent is going to be playing Heart of the Vaults, and you make it much harder for him to generate meaningful blockers early in the game. But Goblin Gravy is not currently pulling threats.
Yeah, Tomathor has the torch for the turn 1 Oni Ronin, and yeah, it's just burn in hand until this Granite Monument gets activated as a 4/1 charge. But in the meantime, Tomathor is going to play out a Temple Scribe off that time influence and has some more goodies in store with a Praxis Displacer waiting in the wings.
Yeah, Gravy's hand's pretty terrible. He throws a Piercing Grief out here on the Temple Scribe just to do something and allow him to Granite Monument next turn. He might even throw a torch at the next one just to Granite Monument.
Yeah, these are the ultimate feel-bads here. Temple Scribe just being an absolute nightmare for Goblin Gravy. And he's going to see that pause off the torch as well. Know that Tomathor has a torch in hand, but just resigns himself to play the Magma Hound to eat up the torch, and then sees the Cinder Yeti on top of his deck, passes up on it so that he can, on the next turn with 6 power, go Sensari Brigand, Cinder Yeti, push through the Brigand.
Not too bad for him here. It does mean that he's essentially going down in card advantage, and the game's already starting to look like it's going to go late. But he pushes 4 damage here. He's got 2 units to attack with, and the Praxis Displacer is not doing a heck of a lot.
Well, this Displacer will do a little bit more here. Tomathor has the option of using Xenon Initiation on him to turn into a 4/3 and kill the Brigand, while also playing an Initiative Sands, and then with future Displacers could keep resetting the killer. Instead, he just takes a more conservative line where he just plays the Displacer, bounces the Brigand back to hand, and now has 2 bodies on board.
Goblin Gravy attacks with a single dude looking for the spark. Tomathor has to decide whether or not he wants to double block here. Yeah, I'm actually not sure why he didn't double block. There isn't exactly a 1 damage unit. Pummel is probably what he was afraid of.
Yep, getting scared of Pummel and gets punished for it as now Groundbreaker is in play. 3/6 double damage. And Tomathor was sitting pretty at 18 health, but now it's looking a little bit more dicey.
There's 6, so that's a couple of flash freezes away from getting what he wants. Tomathor should be close to playing Heart of the Vault. Praxis Displacer getting the Groundbreaker out of the way for 1 turn and probably forcing.
There we go.
Oh, yeah,
Beautiful.
slowing it down. Okay.
Yep, so that's a real smart use of your resources there. Now Tomathor opts to go an ultimate Pyro Knight, or I'm sorry, Goblin Gravy does that, but Tomathor has the Obliterate Force. So Tomathor, though, now is sitting at 6 with all of those decisions, but Goblin Gravy has an 8-cost Groundbreaker, Oni Run in hand, but rips Magma Hound off the top.
It's burn or die for Gravy, but Gravy's real close to getting the burn. He needs Torch, Piercing Shot, Flame Blast, or Flash Fire. He doesn't have Flame Blast. But yeah, like I think he's just probably got what he needs. He can even pull a Caleb's Favor and win here, and there's the Torch.
The weapon of choice is Torch. It turns out when your entire deck is filled with cards that burn your opponent's face, you're likely to draw them. And that's what we see Goblin Gravy do there. Those are a series of tough choices for Tomathor to make, and we saw just how explosive Goblin Gravy's deck can be. Tomathor was sitting at 18 health, and in the blink of an eye, he was dead.
He got a little bit ambitious once he got into a position of power with the Praxis Displacer and the Initiate. He attacked with both of them and then allowed the Magma Hound to come through, which was just enough damage to make it so that there was a burn spell of any kind for Goblin Gravy to win the game. Other than that, I think Tomathor played it perfectly.
Yeah, I think, again, there was some merit to going with the Killer Displacer to permanently deal with the 2-2 and then just play the 1-1 Initiate there and set up some things. But, again, I think there were merits to both lines of play. It was more just Goblin Gravy's deck being an unstoppable force that you just sometimes roll over to.
So, Tomathor has to be an immovable object here. He's currently sitting at a reasonable amount of stuff, and he gets to actually throw the slow out against Goblin Gravy, which is not bad at all.
Opts to turn the Rakano Outlaw into a 4-drop, as it's one of the more difficult units to block in that hand. Right now, Tomathor, though, has mostly late-game plays, but is banking on finding something to play next turn. Say a Temple Scribe would be best-case scenario. So, not a huge point in slowing one of the 1-drops because Goblin Gravy has another one to play anyways. So I like the choice of slowing the Rakano Outlaw instead.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned that he slowed too soon. He might have really wanted to hit something like that Crimson Firemaw and make it basically unplayable. But now he's just going to be facing down Rakano Outlaw later in the game. I think it works out fine for him. It certainly does slow the pace a little bit, but Tomathor does not have early game right now, and he really needs to find some.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, he's just been choosing to play out power because he's finding lots of power. So now the Titan comes down, and Goblin Gravy doesn't have a clean answer to it. Just a hand of piercing shots and 4-cost units means Titan does its job, stops the assault, and now Tomathor gets to curve out. The follow-up will be a Reinarch here, I'm assuming. No, a second Sandstorm Titan off the top, and this is bad news bears for Goblin Gravy.
Gravy, for once, has not pulled his 4th power, and it really matters here. Not only is his Rakano Outlaw locked down at 4, but he's also sitting on the piercing shots he needs to kill the Sandstorm Titans. He's sitting on Crimson Firemaws that are rapidly losing in relevance, and he's basically looking at like a triple block for the Sandstorm Titan if he wants to do anything.
Yeah, if I'm Goblin Gravy and just chump blocking that turn, I think I would have swung with Blaken Apprentice the last turn just to trade it and a piercing shot off for Sandstorm Titan. You got to start getting these shots out of hand if you have any reasonable chance of winning this game. And here we see a piercing shot come out and hit, but Tomathor is crying in for 16 here, and this is going to be all she wrote.
Yeah, that looks like game. Just could not get the necessary power. Tomathor was able to pull all the way up to 6 and 7, and with the 2 Sandstorm Titans in the middle, he was just fine after the slow. So yeah, Devoted Theurge putting his health up to 21, and Gravy's way out of this game.
Yep, Praxis sometimes has trouble recovering from the back foot, but that one, Titan got to be the one to put the foot down, and we're going to go to a game 5. We're tied up 2-2 here. Praxis holding off the Mono Fire Menace for now, but we'll just have to see what goes down in this 5th and final game.
This last one's for all the marbles. I think it's going to depend pretty heavily on whether or not Goblin Gravy gets some very, very good draws. But if we see that go, it could be very, very solid.
Yeah, there's just a little pause there, but it looks like we're going to get back into it. Maybe Goblin Gravy reconsidering if he wanted to swap some of those piercing shots back in for other pummels, but no, we see him here. The mulligan out from Gravy. No one drop, and he's on the draw. That's a rough spot to be in this matchup.
I think he's feeling pretty okay about the Bladekin Apprentice early and the Rakano Outlaw. He certainly does want to be pushing more damage against Tomathor, but he's got access to a reasonable amount of units that are actually quite threatening. Specifically, the Outlaw and the Bladekin Apprentice are just hard to block for the little tokens, whereas Oni, Ronin, and Pyro might do less in this game against Initiates and Temple Scribes. So if he can just find power, he'll probably be okay.
Yep, that's what he's hoping to find. Finds a good 3-drop in Sensari Brigand, but again, just on 2 power. But he can operate off 2 power for a while here. Pyro Knight showing up a little out of order. Instead, going to opt with the Bladekin Apprentice, try and get that rolling. I like going with that over Outlaw just because you don't want to draw things with Warcry. You want to draw power. So
there is a problem here, and that's the Xenon Initiation, which... In that case, Rakano Outlaw is the better play. And here we see basically the free pickup of the Bladekin Apprentice and still having Temple Scribe to chump block with.
Yep, and another Temple Scribe to join it here as Tomathor just starts digging further into his deck. Has a Reinarch waiting to be activated. Now sees a Heart of the Vault on... Okay, he draws a Heart of the Vault. Doesn't see what's next. But opts to, not play the Reinarch there. Wants to play Reinarch next turn. And
piercing shot here to clear the board. Goblin Gravy picking up power, but again picking it up too slow. This is similar to the last game, which did not go very well for him, where he's trying to pick up enough power to actually get going. And Tomathor is just getting consistent power into consistent threats, which means now that he's at 5, he'll be able to play... Obliterate, and he's dangerously close to Heart of the Vault, whereas Goblin Gravy is still stuck at 3.
Seed of Impulse was a massive draw there for Tomathor. Not only undepleted power, but also his 3rd fire source. And that means playing out this Reinarch with confidence, blocking the Pyro Knight so that if Goblin Gravy does have Torch, at least both units die, whereas if it was the quick draw unit, only the Reinarch would have died. And now it's the Heart of the Vault show.
Yeah, if Gravy can play some more power, he'll be in slightly better shape, but the Rakano Outlaw attack is pretty likely to just get blocked. I don't think Tomathor is going to expect any sort of trick to actually stop Heart of the Vault here, so Groundbreaker can't really be played for double damage, and that's a big deal. Sensari Brigand could come down here just to sort of put something on the board, and Groundbreaker 2 could at least be a unit that he could sit with, but I think he's really, really uncomfortable playing Groundbreaker without double damage.
You might just have to, though, but no, it's going to opt to go with the Sensari Brigand, and that pause there is going to put some dread in the pit of his stomach. That means Tomathor picked up a 0-cost Torch, and we can see that, and I think Goblin Gravy will also pick up on that, but good luck playing around a 0-cost Torch. It's going to get you no matter what.
Least on Soulfire Drake, it will end up giving him some entombs that could be useful, but Gravy still has to pick up yet another power to make that happen.
So Gravy's or Tomathor is looking at a Praxis Displacer in hand. Could bounce one of Gravy's units just to set him back a little bit more. But I think you're going to look at the option of bouncing, say, your Temple Scribe to replay it here. Or if you want to go super greedy, bounce your Heart of the Vault and plan on replaying it next turn while you have a 0-cost Torch up.
Vicious play. He goes for the Rakano Outlaw since the Brigand can come back and attack. And now Gravy can play Soulfire Drake, which might be pretty key for helping him push on this game.
Yeah, I think we'll see the Torch here come out on Soulfire Drake. Yes, that means Goblin Gravy's future draws could have Flying or Charge. But we're in full-on race mode now, and Tomathor is going to try and beat down with this Heart of the Vault.
Yeah, at this point, Gravy doesn't have good threats to play down. He can play Outlaw and Groundbreaker. His opponent not at the level of damage that he's particularly looking for, but ooh, wow, yeah, that's the card that he was looking for. 6 damage across every turn. It is going to get obliterated, which means that he's going to take 3.
Well, the Obliterate might go at this Outlaw if, depending on what Tomathor draws to try and push through lethal. We see the A space come out, trying to sneak through that Heart of the Vault, but Goblin Gravy sniffs it out, chump blocks it, but now this Obliterate will almost certainly go to the Brigand, like you said.
Out. That puts Goblin Gravy in a really precarious position. Obliterate is the perfect answer. He gets to kill the 6/6. Now the Groundbreaker doesn't actually look that bad, and he's still got charge flying units in his void.
Yeah.
So Tomathor can just pick up power here and actually be in pretty bad shape.
Yeah, Tomathor currently on 10 power to Goblin Gravy's 5, but now Goblin Gravy might have wished he had more power as that Groundbreaker costs 8. Flying Rakano Outlaw for the draw. Not as good as a charge in that spot, but going forward, he'll be happy that it's evasive. The issue is, if he starts swinging with it, he's at 5. His opponent also plays Torch, so Goblin Gravy's got decisions to make here. Can he afford to hold back with this Outlaw and try and find something else to do? Looks like that's what he's going to go for.
Those War Cries could be good on a flying charge unit. They might actually be lethal. I'm not sure which is best here. He certainly can't attack now. He gets to torch the Amber Acolyte, and that's the only good answer. He's stuck on a power, just waiting.
Yeah.
Reinarch.
Oh, another flying
Outlaw. See another Rakano Outlaw, yeah.
That's going to be all she wrote. An A space here is going to end the game?
It's not quite lethal.
Well, all right.
A torch,
Dawnwalker. Whew.
Flying charge Magma Hound doesn't do enough.
Yep, simply too much overwhelm on the other side. And even if those units didn't have overwhelm, those 2/1/1s would get through for lethal. And Tomathor takes this match 3-2 over Goblin Gravy.
Yeah, walking it back, I'm curious if attacking with a Rakano Outlaw would have generated enough Warcry value to stabilize him. It seems unlikely considering he would have had to defend it against the Amber Acolyte on the following turn. So
yeah.
I don't think Gravy had a way out of that one, and he played it the best he could.
Yeah, I think playing defensively with the Outlaw is kind of the way to go there and just hope to rip a bunch of burn in a row to try and take it out before Tomathor finds a way to finish the game. But that's not quite how it played out. The large overwhelm units eventually making their presence felt.
Yeah, it certainly seemed like the correct route at the time. I was very curious if there may have been like some other way that it could have gone in Gravy's favor, but it didn't look like it'll happen. So Mono Red sadly knocked out of the tournament. I was delighted to see it, though. It looked like it really gave all that it could, and I'm really happy to see this deck in the list. So, yeah, let's go ahead and give a cheer for Tomathor and see how that Praxis midrange does against the other decks in the final round.
Well, it turns out the other deck is going to be Praxis as well. So we've got a Praxis midrange throwdown coming up in the finals after this short break.
Beefcake fights. Let's go.